For years, Amy Brown stood quietly in the shadows of her family, letting the world believe in the myth of unity that Alaskan Bush people so proudly displayed. She was the emotional anchor of the Brown family, the silent strength holding everything together, whether in the unforgiving chill of the Alaskan wilderness or under the harsh spotlight of reality television. But while fans saw her as a soft-spoken matriarch always ready with a gentle smile, few ever realized what it cost her to maintain that image. Beneath the surface, there were cracks. Cracks caused not by nature or age, but by the very people she loved most. The illusion of the Brown family's off-grid perfection began to shatter, not with a scandal or lawsuit, but with subtle inconsistencies, the unspoken tensions behind scenes, strained smiles, and silences that carried too much weight. Amy always knew the life portrayed wasn't entirely accurate. Yes, they valued self-reliance, but the warmth of the family shown to the world didn't always match the reality she lived once the cameras stopped rolling. As time passed, those cracks deepened, and after the death of her husband Billy Brown in 2021, a devastating cancer battle, and countless family upheavals, Amy began to confront the truth. There were 5 people in her life who left wounds too deep to ignore. 5 relationships fractured by betrayal, distance, or bitterness. This is the untold story of Amy Brown's private heartbreak, the betrayals that haunted her, and the scars she learned to carry. Amy's first great heartbreak came not from family, but from the life she left behind. Born and raised in Texas, she had dreams far beyond the rugged wild. But marrying Billy at just 15 swept her into a world of isolation, survival, and distance from her roots. Over time, she became estranged from her own mother and brother, relatives who later spoke publicly, accusing Billy of cutting Amy off from her past. Though Amy never publicly addressed those claims, friends say she carried that estrangement like a ghost, silently grieving the family she lost along the way. Then came the painful rift with her daughter, Snowbird. After Billy's death, rumors swirled that Snowbird resented her mother's decisions regarding finances and fame. Sources close to the family claim tension grew behind the scenes, with Snowbird withdrawing into herself, even considering leaving the show entirely. Though mother and daughter eventually appeared on screen together again, insiders say the warmth between them had cooled. Amy also endured betrayal from a once-trusted friend in the production crew, a confidant who allegedly sold private family details to tabloids. For Amy, who had always lived under the microscope, this invasion of trust struck deeply. Perhaps the most complicated wound was the growing distance from Gabe and Bear, 2 sons once fiercely loyal. After Billy's passing, each struggled with grief in their own way, Gabe retreating into silence, Bear into anger and impulsive choices. Amy, watching from afar, feared she was losing them to their own pain. Yet, through it all, Amy never stopped loving them. In the solitude of Washington's mountain shadows, she began journaling her thoughts, sketching memories, and rediscovering her voice. Her story, once hidden behind the rugged mystique of Alaskan Bush people, is not just one of survival in the wild, but of survival in the heart. Matt Brown, the fall of a firstborn. Matt Brown had once been the rock of the Brown family, the oldest child, protector, and builder. In the early days before paychecks and cameras, Matt was Amy's partner in survival. But addiction doesn't honor history. By the show's 4th and 5th seasons, Matt was battling demons Amy couldn't reach. He entered rehab, returned, then relapsed, each time slipping further from the man Amy had raised. In 2019, Matt disappeared from Alaskan Bush People. Rumors swirled, the family stayed quiet. And then in 2021, Matt spoke out. He accused his father of controlling the family's finances, claiming he was left cold, hungry, and broke, while the show earned hundreds of thousands per episode. But worse were the allegations that followed. That same year, two women accused Matt of serious misconduct. Though no charges were filed, the accusations left a stain Amy couldn't scrub from her heart. She remained publicly silent, but those close to her said she was shattered. Matt had always been the wild card in the Brown family, charming, creative, but haunted by demons he couldn't seem to outrun. His struggles with addiction were well documented, and his trips in and out of rehab became a recurring crisis behind the scenes. While the show often painted him as the misunderstood older brother, the truth was far messier. Amy, ever the devoted mother, had stood by him through each fall, flying to treatment centers, making late-night phone calls, and praying endlessly for his recovery. But Matt's public accusations in 2021 cut deeper than ever before. He alleged that his father manipulated contracts, controlled access to money, and used isolation as a form of power. While Billy could no longer defend himself, Amy found herself caught between grief, loyalty, and disbelief. To hear her firstborn speak so bitterly about the man she had loved since she was 15 was devastating. And then came the misconduct allegations, chilling accusations that blindsided the entire family. Though Matt denied wrongdoing and no formal charges were filed, the damage was done. Amy, already battling the shadows of her own health and widowhood, now faced something darker: the possibility that her son had hurt others in a way she couldn't reconcile with the boy she once rocked to sleep. Privately, insiders say Amy grieved the son she once knew. She distanced herself from Matt but never disavowed him. Her heart is broken, but it's still his home, one close friend said. In interviews since, Matt has hinted at reconciliation, but nothing public has materialized. For Amy, the pain lingers, a mother's love bound in silence, shame, and a hope that healing might still come. The boy she had raised in muddy riverbanks and dense forests had become a stranger. The heartbreak was not only in his absence, but in what he had become. For a mother like Amy, who built her life on loyalty and faith in family, the distance Matt created left a wound too deep to heal. Noah Brown, a son's betrayal. If Matt's dissent broke Amy's heart, Noah's actions would leave her feeling utterly betrayed. Noah had always been the sensitive one, the son who checked in, spoke softly, and understood her unspoken struggles. That made what happened in 2025 all the more devastating. Just days before his sister Rain and her husband Josiah were arrested, Noah made a welfare call about his mother. He alleged that Rain and Josiah had introduced Amy to meth, claimed she was off her medication, and behaving erratically. He told police she was living in a remote cabin and being kept from medical care. The accusations, whether out of concern or condemnation, didn't matter. What mattered was that Noah chose to involve strangers before speaking to Amy. For a woman who survived cancer, public scrutiny, and the harshest conditions of nature, having her own son publicly question her sanity and safety was a wound no mother should endure. That moment, more than any other, made Amy realize that the family she had fought so hard to protect no longer existed as she knew it. It all began subtly: missed phone calls, strange tension during family gatherings, whispers behind closed doors. Noah, the most level-headed of the Brown children, had always been viewed as the peacekeeper. He was the one who valued structure, responsibility, and stability, especially after marrying Rain and starting a family of his own. But as Amy's health declined and her decisions became more guarded, something shifted between them. In 2022, things came to a head. Sources close to the family revealed that Noah had quietly reached out to legal counsel and even consulted with mental health professionals about Amy's well-being. Without her knowledge, his intentions may have come from a place of fear and responsibility, but to Amy, it felt like betrayal. Rather than coming to her with his concerns, he sought outside opinions, effectively placing her under a microscope once again, this time not from fans or media, but from her own blood. Publicly, Amy remained composed, but those closest to her saw the toll it took. She stopped attending group filming sessions and began spending more time alone in their mountain homestead in Washington. She poured herself into her faith, her journal, and gardening, anything to distract from the gaping silence that now lay between her and Noah. Though they still speak occasionally, the closeness they once shared is gone. Holidays became smaller, quieter. Family photos stopped appearing online. For Ami, the realization was cruel but necessary. The wilderness could be unforgiving, but nothing compared to the emotional terrain of a fractured family. And while she still holds hope that bridges can be rebuilt, she now walks through life with a cautious heart, one that knows even the deepest roots can be pulled loose by storms that come from within. The estrangement from Erlene, Mima Branson, and Les Branson. Ami's estrangement from her mother, Erlene, and brother, Les Branson, is a wound that spanned 4 decades. At 15, Ami ran away with Billy Brown, a man 11 years older. Within months, they married. Her mother gave consent only on the condition Ami would finish school. That promise was quickly broken. For over 30 years, Amy vanished from her family's lives. Her mother, Erlene Branson, watched Alaskan Bush People not as a fan, but as a grieving parent, clinging to the screen for any glimpse of her daughter's smile. Her voice, some sign she was okay. What viewers saw as reality television, Erlene saw as a lifeline, a flicker of hope in the dark. Amy left Texas at just 15, marrying Billy Brown and disappearing into the wilderness. Over the years, Erlene tried to reconnect. She wrote letters, made phone calls, and even reached out to production companies, only to be met with silence or redirection. It's believed that Billy deliberately cut ties between Ami and her family, a claim echoed by Amy's brother Les, who also came forward in later years to say he'd been shut out. When Amy was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer in 2017, Erlene's hope ignited once more. Despite their decades-long estrangement, she made desperate attempts to contact her daughter, calls to hospitals, outreach through mutual acquaintances, and appeals through social media. But nothing reached Amy. It's unclear whether Amy ever received those messages or if the years of distance had built a wall too thick to penetrate. Privately, family members say Erlene was heartbroken. She watched her daughter fight for her life on national television, unable to hold her hand, unable to whisper the motherly comforts that might have given Amy strength. She just wanted to hear her voice again, a cousin once said, even once, just to say she loved her. In 2020, Erlene passed away, without that final phone call, without reconciliation. Ami never publicly addressed her mother's death. Some believe the grief was too deep, tangled in guilt and unresolved pain. Others think she learned too late. To this day, Amy keeps her early life shrouded in silence. But those close to her say Erlene's absence haunts her more than she'll admit. In the solitude of her Washington cabin, Amy has been seen revisiting old photo albums, quiet moments that hint at a woman reflecting not just on what was lost, but on what might have been if only the past had broken differently. Her brother Les blamed Billy entirely. He accused him of isolating Amy, intercepting letters, and rewriting her history. Even after Billy's death in 2021, Les never stopped believing Amy had been a victim of control. Despite posting emotional pleas on Facebook and trying to reconnect, Ami never responded. Yet, Les said he didn't fully blame her. To him, Ami was a woman buried under decades of silence and manipulation. Robert Maughan's lawsuit and the legal wounds. In 2020, a Tennessee doctor named Robert Maughan filed a lawsuit that would drag Amy into legal chaos. He claimed he'd loaned Billy $30,000 in total, in exchange for a 10% stake in all profits from Alaskan Bush People and associated projects. As the show became a massive hit, Maughan never saw a dime. After Billy's passing, Maughan demanded the court officially name Amy as a defendant, since she was executor of Billy's estate. What followed was a brutal legal battle. Ami's legal team tried to dismiss the case, but Maughan persisted, filing contracts and claims. For Ami, this wasn't just a legal hassle. It was a reminder of how little control she'd had over her own life's work and legacy. She never commented publicly, but those who saw her in court described a woman worn thin by grief and betrayal. The case stemmed from a dispute involving a longtime associate of the family, a man named Mon, who claimed he had been promised a share of the profits from Alaskan Bush People. According to court documents, Mon alleged he had helped negotiate deals, manage logistics, and support the production behind the scenes, only to be cut out once the show became profitable. He presented supposed agreements and communications that, he argued, proved he was entitled to a portion of the revenue. For Ami, already reeling from Billy's death and fractured relationships with her children, the lawsuit struck a nerve. She had never been heavily involved in the business side of the show. Billy had handled most contracts and negotiations, often keeping details close to the chest. Now, as the sole representative of the Brown estate, Ami was suddenly thrust into a world of legal jargon, depositions, and financial audits. Friends say she felt blindsided. She had spent decades surviving off-grid, battling nature, cancer, and family breakdowns, only to find herself being accused in court by someone she once trusted. Worse, she worried about how the case might impact her children's future and the family's already fragile public image. During one court appearance in late 2023, witnesses noted Ami's frailty. She appeared thin, dressed in dark colors, and carried herself with a quiet dignity. But her eyes told another story, one of exhaustion, confusion, and pain. Behind closed doors, she confided in close friends that she felt like her life's work was being stripped from her, piece by piece. Though the case was eventually settled quietly, terms undisclosed, it left a lasting mark. Ami withdrew even further from the public eye, retreating to the mountains that had once promised peace. The lawsuit may have ended on paper, but for Ami, it marked the final blow in a long line of betrayals that reshaped her view of trust, legacy, and the cost of fame. A fractured sisterhood, Rain and Birdie. Perhaps the most painful fracture came from the bond meant to be unbreakable. The sisterhood between Rain and Birdie. On screen, they were inseparable. Off screen, pressures mounted. Rain became more entangled in drama, while Birdie withdrew. The 2025 incident, where Rain was named in Noah's report as allegedly influencing Ami's behavior and medication, dealt a blow to their relationship. For Ami, watching her daughters drift or clash in such damaging ways was a sorrow she struggled to name. Rain's choices, and the perception that she may have endangered her own mother, severed a sacred maternal trust. Even if forgiveness was possible, closeness would never be the same. Rain Brown, once the bubbly and adventurous youngest daughter, had grown into a woman whose decisions increasingly worried those around her. Known for her free spirit and passionate nature, Rain's journey was often a roller coaster of highs and lows, especially after the family's struggles intensified following Billy's death. Ami, who had always tried to shelter her children from the harshest realities of their unconventional lifestyle, found herself confronting the painful truth. Her daughters were no longer the innocent children she had raised. One of the most painful moments came when rumors surfaced that Rain had put Ami in harm's way during a particularly volatile episode. Some insiders hinted at incidents involving risky behavior or emotional outbursts that left Ami vulnerable, physically and emotionally. While the details remain private, those close to the family say that for Ami, the breach felt like a profound betrayal. More than just worry about safety, Ami mourned the emotional distance growing between her and her daughters. Rain's choices sometimes clashed with the values Ami held dear, values shaped by decades of hardship, survival, and resilience. Where Ami sought stability and healing, Rain seemed drawn to rebellion and escape. Ami's heart ached watching them drift apart, as conversations became strained and the warmth of their bond cooled. Yet, despite the cracks, Ami's love for her daughters never wavered. Friends who spent time with her during these dark days say she often spoke of forgiveness, not as an easy act, but as a necessity if healing was to begin. Still, she knew some wounds ran too deep to erase. The sacred trust between mother and child, once broken, could not be simply stitched back together. In the quiet moments at home, Amy reflected on the family she once dreamed of, a close-knit circle bound by love and understanding. The reality was far more complicated, and though she carries the scars of fractured relationships, she also carries hope that one day those she loves most might find their way back to her, even if the journey would be slow and uncertain. Amy Brown's story is not one of villainy or victimhood. It's one of survival. Survival through illness, betrayal, estrangement, legal battles, and the endless weight of public life. The 5 people who left their marks on her heart, Matt, Noah, Erlene, Les, and Robert, aren't just figures of drama. They are the reasons Amy's story matters. Each of these relationships tells a different chapter of struggle and resilience in Amy's life. Take Matt, her eldest son, whose battle with addiction and public accusations shook the family to its core. His pain mirrored hers in many ways, a reminder of how wounds can echo through generations. Amy's silence about his accusations wasn't denial, but a protective shield, a way to keep her family's private struggles from unraveling completely in the public eye. Noah, once the dependable peacekeeper, became a source of heartache when he questioned her well-being and sought outside help without turning first to her. For Amy, that moment marked a profound fracture. It was not just about a mother being doubted. It was about the erosion of trust from someone she had raised to stand by her side. The pain of that breach was compounded by the weight of public scrutiny, which often felt like a relentless spotlight on her vulnerabilities. Erlene, Amy's own mother, represents the heartbreaking gap of estrangement that spanned decades. Erlene's death in 2020 without reconciliation left a silent wound that Amy carries deeply. It's a reminder of the cost of lost family ties and the unspoken grief that lingers when bridges are never rebuilt. Les and Robert, Amy's brother and estranged family members, symbolize the complicated dynamics of loyalty and distance. Their stories intersect with hers in ways that highlight how family can be both a source of strength and profound disappointment. These fractured connections shaped Amy's understanding of love, forgiveness, and resilience. Through every trial, Amy endured, not as a passive victim, but as a fierce survivor who confronted each betrayal and loss with quiet strength. Her journey is a testament to the complexity of family, the endurance of a mother's love, and the courage it takes to keep moving forward when everything familiar has been shattered. In the end, Amy Brown's story matters because it is real. It's messy, painful, and imperfect, but it's also deeply human. And in her survival, there is a powerful message. No matter how deep the wounds, there is always a chance to heal and redefine what family truly means. Her silence wasn't cowardice, it was self-preservation. And now, as Amy steps into the later chapters of her life, she is finally allowing the world to see the scars she's carried alone. She doesn't ask for sympathy, she asks for understanding. For even the quietest voices can carry the weight of an entire family's story. And perhaps that's the lesson Amy Brown leaves behind, that survival is rarely as simple or pure as television makes it seem. Sometimes it's 1,000 tiny compromises, buried grief, and broken bonds endured in silence. But even in that silence, strength endures.